Hi guys, it is Aubrey, and I have another autism video today. And this video is actually about why I talk about autism so much. I'm going to discuss why I believe that it's important and valuable to be open about being autistic, or at least why I choose to be open about it. I'm just gonna go ahead and start off by saying it's definitely not easy for me to be open about it. Um, I know most likely the majority of you know the term coming out. A lot of people use that term in the LGBT community, but I also believe that it's kind of relevant in the autistic community too. Coming out as autistic was really hard for me, and it still is hard for me because it's a continual thing, and it's scary putting myself out there that way and knowing that I could be judged, because I don't view myself as less for being autistic. I don't. And I don't think that other people who are autistic are less than me or than neurotypicals. And that is precisely why I choose to be open about it, because I actually didn't know I was autistic um until, like, I don't know if it was 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. We figured it out. And I had been struggling very severely in school despite being very smart. Um, and it's because of the really intense anxiety that I had with school. And we later figured out, because in elementary school I was always top of my class, and academically I think I also would have been, except I almost didn't graduate. Um, I ended up graduating a year early because of independent studies, but I would have rather been in regular school if I would have had that choice, but because there's so much lack of awareness surrounding my presentation of autism, I do not fit any of the stereotypes. I'm very typical for an autistic girl because that's what I am. I'm an autistic girl, and I possess all, or at least most, of the qualities of an autistic girl, with on my end of the spectrum. And also, that's another thing. I think people tend to think that the autism spectrum is linear. Over here is more autistic, and over here is less autistic. And this idea is what has led people to start trying to. Is my dog okay? I think she's okay. Get rid of the high functioning, and low functioning autistic labels, because it's not linear. I'm high functioning technically, but high functioning does not mean that I function well. I do not function well. My needs are different than somebody who would be on the other side of the spectrum, but my therapist kind of described it as being more of like a mixing board. Um, so they there's like a series of spectrums, and it's like this one's up a little more, this one's down a little more, series of spectrums. And I happen to excel verbally, and I have a high IQ, which is not what people think of autistics. They think of autistics as being not being able to speak and not being academic, having challenges mentally. Um, but that's not how autism isn't diagnosed based off of having mental challenges. That's not how autism is diagnosed. It's a lot more complex than that. And a lot of autistic people actually do have high IQs. So being intelligent does not mean that someone is not autistic. And I guess that's kind of, I hope I'm making sense with the way that I'm speaking. People tend to get lost in what I'm saying, but everything that I've said so far in this video, I've been explaining why I feel it's important to talk about autism. Me personally, um, is because of the reasons that those beliefs are harmful um, to people like me. Um, and it's not easy to talk about it openly because there's a lot of stigma. Something I've noticed is when I reveal to somebody that I'm autistic, not always, but a lot of times, it almost feels like there is an automatic change in the expectations that somebody has for me. So, a lot of my teachers and stuff and other people knew that I was really smart. And I'm not saying that my teachers would, just like people in general. Um, so if somebody knows that I'm smart and have these skills and talents and whatever, they might have expectations here, and then I say, oh, I'm autistic, and they automatically go here. Even though I've always been the same person, now they have the word autistic, the A word. But it's not a bad word. It's freeing to me, the word autistic. Some people have told me, oh, it's not really that important for you to have a label. Like, it doesn't matter if you're autistic or not, because it's not going to change anything whether you are or you aren't. And when they said stuff to me like that, I know that they were trying to make me feel better, but it doesn't. And it's the same thing when people say, oh, everyone's on the autism spectrum. I know that they're trying to make me feel better because they don't want me to see myself as less for being autistic, because that's what they think, whether they realize that or not. That's why they're saying those things, is because they believe the word autistic is negative inherently. And I don't believe it is. There's a lot of days where it feels like something negative, but that usually comes from the way that other people treat me because of it. But I try to remind myself that in here I am not negative for being autistic. I am Aubrey, and Aubrey is autistic, and that's okay. And I've always been autistic. Anybody who's known me, before they met me, I was autistic. When they met me, I was autistic. And if they know me now, I've been autistic the entire time they've known me. The only difference is now they know. And I wouldn't be the same person if I wasn't autistic. And frankly, I don't want to be anybody else. I'm unique, and I like it that way. I don't like blending in with the crowd, which is a good thing, because I couldn't if I tried. Because I'm just neurologically wired different, and I see the world differently, and I feel things differently, and the world is just different to me, and it scares the heck out of people that I'm different, because anything that people don't understand, they kind of would just rather pretend it doesn't exist. Which is again why I think you get those things that people say, like, oh yeah, everyone's on the spectrum, because they don't want to acknowledge that we actually do exist. Because it's terrifying thinking that there's people out there that are different from you. Same thing with it doesn't matter if you're autistic or not. I don't know if they, I think people say that because they're trying to relate to me and trying to make me feel better by relating to me. But in trying to relate to me, it makes me feel worse because it just kind of like a slap in the face because they can't. So it annoys me when people try to relate to something that they literally cannot relate to. It's invalidating. Um, so imagine if something happened to you that was completely unique to you, and somebody who had not gone through whatever you went through said, "Oh yeah, I totally know what you mean. I've been there." But they're lying. They hadn't been there, and they were lying about being there. It's kind of a slap in the face and kind of makes your struggles seem less important and invalidated, and it kind of makes me feel invisible almost because I am autistic and I am okay with acknowledging that now. The only reason why I was not okay with acknowledging it before was because of the stigma. I didn't want to be the A word. You know, because it has such a negative connotation attached to that word. um I didn't want to be the A word. But I am.